My siblings and I talked about one of our neighbors' weddings, while my mother started talking about her plans to grow vegetables. Her topic was completely unrelated to our conversation. We rudely scolded her for not paying attention to us. We had no idea what was going on in her mind. That happened many times because her mind was somewhere else. We didn't know she was hurting. No, we did feel how much pain she was secretly keeping inside herself. A few months ago, I had a long phone conversation with her, and I asked her to give me some detail to help me write one of my stories. She opened her heart and started talking about her precarious life during the wars and her sickness. My mother, Gerda, is the second child of her family. She was raised in Bardabal, a village in Iraqi Kurdistan. She didn't go to school because it was unacceptable at the time in her society. She spent her entire life in that village. One day, Gerda was told that her brother was going to marry a girl, and Gerda, in return, had to accept the girl's brother, Muhammad. Gerda was only 14. She was dumbfounded. To top it all, the tradition was that if my uncle had a problem with his wife or divorced her, Gerda had to be divorced too. So Gerda was married. She gave birth to a boy, Sabah, at the age of 15. But tragically, her husband was hanged by the Iraqi regime because he fought against it. Immediately after her husband's funeral, her father-in-law forced her to marry to his second son, as was the tradition then. He also forced her to quit praying 5 times a day according to Islam because he hated Islam. Gerda refused the demands. She escaped. Her family begged her to return to her father-in-law's house for the sake of her brother, who was still married to that family. I'd rather die than return, she said. Her rebellion was successful, but it also marked the beginning of a never-ending journey of pain and sorrow. The price of her disobedience was way worse than she thought it would be. The first punishment was that she was banned from seeing her son for several years. Being a widow at the age of 16 in a conservative society was catastrophic. If you were a respectable woman, you wouldn't be a widow, she was repeatedly told. Gerda was a widow from 1974 to 1918. She was humiliated and the quality of her life was deteriorated drastically. In her mind, remarrying was the worst that could happen to her. But she needed to regain what was deemed as a respectable standing in society. On the other hand, my father Khalid, who lived in the same village, desperately needed to get married. His cousins and friends had gotten married years before. But despite his attempts to marry, Khalid had remained a bachelor. He was a strong, supportive, confident man, but with a limited social skills. In contrast, the fragile Gerda was kind, sensitive, and unsure of herself. Both Khalid's and Gerda's families were neighbors, but neither she nor he had ever considered marriage to each other. As if, like an angel, one day Gerda's distant relative proposed that Khalid and Gerda get married given their respective unfortunate unmarried circumstances. They both agreed enthusiastically. For this wedding, Gerda had no expectations. As a widow, she had she knew that she wouldn't receive valuable jewelries. All your uncle's wives were offered more gold than I was, she told me. A few days before the wedding, luck, as usual, was not on her side when one of her cousins was accidentally electrocuted to death. They had two choices: postpone the wedding or marry quietly without the ceremony. This was the custom and still is. My father was in a rush and chose the latter option. He was not taking any more risks. My mother was picked up by a car and taken to my father's house at dawn. The early hours of the day was not typical. I was like a construction worker reporting for work, not a bride stepping into her new home, my mother said. The bloody eight Iraq-Iran war broke out at the onset of their marriage. The area they lived in was at the epicenter of the wars, and they stayed underground for many years, for many days, due to heavy bombardment. In the mid of 1980s, my mother was dealt with another cruel blow. Her two younger brothers, Abdul Karim and Hassan, were killed within 18 months of each other by Saddam's regime. She haven't even allowed to visit their graves. I wish I had died with them. She repeats this every time she mentioned their names. The trauma of losing her brothers was unbearable. She lost part of her memories, the taste of food, and the joy of living. Around 14 years later, she still wears black clothes, a sign of mourning, and she has never danced. I was born between the deaths of her brothers. She hoped that my birth would bring her a bit of happiness to alleviate her pain. Instead, I became sick, and my sickness intensified her anguish. Later, my father had escaped when Saddam's army forced him to join the military against the Kurdish militias. When I was only a few months, when I was a few months old, my mother fled to a village and hid my brother and me in a Turkey barn. After Saddam used chemical weapons in the neighborhood city of Halabja, killing around 5,000 people in 1988, we escaped to another place. Then the Kurdish rose against Saddam and took over the Kurdish cities in north of Iraq in 1991. Saddam threatened to regain control over us. So we escaped to Iran as part of a massive Kurdish exodus in 1991. When the United Nations created a no-fly zone over Khorasan, Saddam threat and hold over the region were entirely removed, and the Kurdish gained semi-autonomy over the Khorasan. We returned to our village, our demolished village in the summer of 1991, empty-handed. We faced harsh starvation because of the UN imposed sanctions against Iraq. In return, Saddam imposed sanctions on Khorasan. By then, my mother was raising 9 children and managing to the household as she continues to support my father. Yet, generously, she provided our starving neighbors with food. She preferred to keep moving to deal with her difficult life. She sang the Kurdish song Hora, as a reflection of her sadness. As a sign of love and loyalty to her brother Abdul Karim, she kept his belongings, a Christian, Kurdish bell, and photos. Sorry. She put them in my drawer because she saw a resemblance between my uncle and me. And I was born just one day after his death. When she would send me to take a bath, she picked my clothes and she cried unstoppably each time. Why did you leave me alone? I wish I could meet you again. She kept saying as she cried. In 2003, Saddam was overthrown. My mother, like many others, thought we would have a better life. But the Kurdish government continues with Saddam's legacy of barbarism over those they governed. My mother developed long-term asthma and pain in her shoulders, knees, hands, and back. Due to the stress of the 3 previous decades, her health kept declining. The doctor in Kurdistan gave her the wrong medication, and a failed surgery on her throat left a scar inside. Despite her weakened physical state, she continues to encourage my siblings, relatives, and neighbors to keep going strong. She often gives portions of her food, money, and belongings to the poor. During the Russian attacks on Ukraine, she expressed her concern for the Ukrainian mothers who had fled to the neighboring countries. As war continues, thousands of mothers are displaced, and I see my mothers in every one of them. And I believe her story will inspire many. Since she reveals her ordeals to me every now and then, when I think about her, I'm deeply saddened. I close my eyes and imagine myself on her shoes. I hate those who have hurt her. However, she forgive them. However, she has already forgiven them without forgetting the pain. May God forgive them, as she always says. It seems to me that my mother's rebellious streak brought out me to life. If she hadn't been against the societal norms, I don't believe I would ever have been born. Her rebelliousness influenced me tremendously as I have fought against corruption, brutality, and nepotism in Iraq. My life was at risk when I lived there, and I forced it to flee to Canada where I still protest against discrimination and racism. I'm extremely frustrated by what is still happening in Iraq, and I'm not sure I will ever meet my mother again. But I learned from here to never give up. Thank you.